Hello people, we have a packed week ahead with 4 interest rate decisions next week and FOMC on Wednesday or Thursday depending on where you are located in the world. We start as always on the DXY on the weekly time frame, and we can see here we have a follow through week, the second bearish week after retesting the high. Looking here on the 4-hour time frame, we can see we have a bit. Right now we have more neutral price action overall. We are located in an area where both scenarios would make sense. However, looking at this structure here, this looks for me more like we might finish a bearish continuation structure in this area. That's my overall sentiment for next week. I'm leaning a bit more towards continuation of US dollar weakness. I would not be surprised if the DXY remains in this area until FOMC before we then see the next larger move and have FOMC as a catalyst for the next bigger directional move. However, we should keep in mind, we discussed before a potential for this expanding structure here. So it's also possible that we see a break back up into the structure followed by a lower time frame continuation, and then we know we are in for dollar strength in the next weeks. So that remains to be seen, so we are waiting for clear price action confirmation. That leads me to Euro US dollar on the daily time frame, and you can see now I actually kind of contradict myself to what I just said before, but I took a daily limit order entry on Friday after this bearish close here on Thursday. We discussed this scenario last week already. We were looking for a long into the high. The price overall finished this 1, 2, 3 structure into this liquidity area here to the left and did not break out too far here on the higher time frame. Going down to the 1-hour time frame, I will show you what my overall sentiment was that time. I saw here price finish the high in form of a structure. We had here a 1, 2, 3 expanding structure into the high and then a nice impulsive breakout of this structure. So I set my limit order here roughly around 50% of this leg and then got tagged in. However, looking at it right now with this overall Friday price action, this looks a bit more corrective, and it would also make sense that price just breaks out to the upside. We have here a potential for this 1, 2, 3 bull flag. We had a nice reaction on the third touch. We have a lower time frame continuation. So this overall right now looks more neutral. Actually, it even looks a bit more bullish, which would then mean that the DXY would sell off further. On the daily time frame, you can see it is still my overall trade idea and the sentiment is still in place. So with these two, combining Euro US dollar and DXY, you can see here why both scenarios would make sense. The Euro US dollar here on the higher time frame looks a bit more bearish. The DXY on the lower time frame looks a bit more bearish, so that in itself is already contradicting. Australian dollar, US dollar on the other hand looks very bullish. We have here this expanding structure. We have a very nice bullish momentum run, a daily bullish momentum run. We broke out of all this price action here, and we are now looking for a slightly larger correction, a larger continuation in around the highs. I'd like to see a 4-hour structure after such a strong bullish momentum run, a 4-hour structure, a bullish structure to then enter a long continuation. Pound US dollar is similar. We just stick around here on the 4-hour time frame because we discussed this pair last week as well. Overall, the last leg is finished. We had here this impulse, this correction, another impulse. So this overall move is finished. We did tap this liquidity area here to the left. That's a very significant area because it's this last continuation before we then have this very last aggressive sell-off, and then which led then into this more corrective phase here. So overall, we would expect here, we had a nice washout. We would expect a more aggressive, impulsive reaction here from the high if it would sell off. However, you can see very similar to Euro US dollar before on the high. It looked good initially, but it's very corrective price action overall. And going down to the 1 hour time frame, you could even argue there was an entry already, but again, very late on Friday. Here on the 1 hour time frame, we have a very nice 3-touch bull flag continuation here with the 1, 2, 3, and then the first retrace here. This is not according to my plan, because overall I need a slightly larger retrace, at least more than 50% than the previous bearish candle. We did not get that. So overall, if we hover around here a bit and come back down, ideally with the washout candle into this area, breaking back in with a lower time frame continuation structure, I would entertain a long entry in this area, or then a 4-hour washout, break back in, then that would also be okay. Overall, I'm leaning towards pound US dollar long continuation next week. US dollar Canadian is back on the list we have here on the weekly time frame. It looks very aggressive now. We had a long time here, very corrective price action. Price just slowly creeped up, and now we had 2 very strong bearish weeks, and the last week was a very strong bearish follow-through week. So therefore, I'm looking for more bearish pressure in US dollar Canadian. On the 4-hour time frame, we can see here we had this liquidity area for a potential 3-touch again, 1, 2, 3. So if that overall would have been a bullish continuation, we would expect some reaction in this area. Instead, we fully broke out of this whole corrective piece of price action with strong momentum, and we are now looking for a bearish continuation. There is even an argument here again for a head and shoulder pattern with again a strong breakout, a small retest here and the breakout. So overall, I'm leaning for bearish continuation. And I'd like to see at least a structured 1 hour continuation flag in this area, just because the overall momentum run was fairly aggressive. So if we get something like that, a structure like that, or something like that, ideally in this area, that would be perfect for a short entry. It's, for me, the overall short is in place as long as we are trading below this low here to the left. Ideally, we even retest it in form of a structure to then enter in this area for a short. Pound Australian dollar, I had a trade open from the week before already. I did hold that over the weekend. And then now, yeah, I just got a bit unlucky on the 4-hour time frame. Let's have a look here. Overall, we had this nice 3-touch structure. We discussed this last week already. We had this washout. I entered here and I did hold into this area. I moved my stop loss. I traded this on 2 accounts. So on one account, I moved my stop loss into this area after this very strong. This looked a bit like a retrace in this area. I did not want to give away all my profit on that account. And we were in an area where you would expect a slightly larger pullback. We did get the pullback, and my other second account, the stop loss was here on one, more or less a risk reward 1-to-1. And yeah, I got taken out here with spreads before then price continued in my direction. So again, that's a bit unlucky, but yeah, it is what it is. And I'm now looking still for a short continuation. We had price does not need to come back all this way for a potential 3-touch. It would be okay to then enter in this area. But for early next week, I'm looking more towards a 1 hour structured flag around the previous low here to the left to then enter a short continuation. Looking at pound Canadian dollar here on the weekly time frame, we had a nice bearish high test candle filling the previous week's wick. So price does not have to come up again, even though we see here on the 4-hour time frame, price turned around slightly earlier than expected. Initially, I was looking here for this 1, 2, 3 structure somewhere in this area, retesting this previous liquidity area here to the left. But we can see price started to reverse earlier, and then we had this very way better than expected data from Canada, out of Canada, and this very aggressive sell-off. So I'm now looking for a continuation in pound weakness, and therefore for pound Canadian dollar short continuations. And I'd like to see at least a structured 1 hour structure here on this low to then enter a short continuation. Australian dollar yen on the daily time frame, we had this pair on and off on a watch list, and we can see here we had this previous high here to the left as a potential for a turnaround. We had here some structure into this high. We had an initial sell-off, but price failed to commit. Instead, now we are really back in a bullish momentum run, and we closed fairly strong on Friday evening. I'm now looking on the 1 hour time frame again for a structured bull flag continuation, preferably even retesting this high here to the left to then enter a long continuation. Swiss francs yen, on the other hand, is a bit it's a bit a counter trend trade overall here on the larger, bigger picture on the weekly time frame. We can see here we are still just in an uptrend. We have a bit less momentum than in the other yen-related pairs. On the 4 hour time frame, you can see here we have very corrective price action. So that means there is still an argument for price to continue further to the upside. We are still in this larger potential 1, 2, 3 bull flag. We again turned here a bit early, so there is still an argument for price to come back down here and to then continue to the upside. So I keep that in mind. However, I see Swiss francs overall a bit weaker at the moment, and and we discussed these running channels. That's basically also a running channel with corrective price action, that if we get a flat flag towards the end of a running channel, that they can really drop out. And that's what I'm looking for now here on the 1 hour time frame. I'd like to see a flat bear flag continuation. I would entertain a short in this area, retesting this small liquidity area, closing the gap here, something like that would be more than enough room to manage the trade, even if it then still turns around for a 4 hour or higher time frame long continuation. New Zealand dollar yen is very similar to Australian dollar yen. It's another trade I took last week, which I got taken out here for break even with this week. A bit unlucky again. I took it here on this first initial expanding structure here with this 1, 2, and then the third touch here after this corrective price action. And that was my entry signal here in this area, and price was then just continued very corrective, and price reached these highs here. I moved my stop to break even, and then got tagged out with spreads. But then again, it is what it is. So overall, I'm still looking for long continuations. Price in the bigger picture here on the 4 hour time frame. So you can see it would even make sense for price to come back one more time for then this larger expanding again 3-touch structure. That would be ideal to then enter along in this area. It's not necessary. So if we get a structured flag in this area here, I would also entertain along in this area. So it's really just all about finding a confirmed long entry. And New Zealand dollar Swiss francs on the daily time frame, you can see immediately we are approaching an area which is fairly interesting. So if we see a daily washout candle here in this area, retesting this liquidity area, then I would entertain a short entry on the daily time frame. Even if I get a second day confirmation candle, that would be okay. And on the other hand, if we see here on the 4 hour time frame, a breakout with momentum, because just looking at the move, how the last leg is structured, we have this impulse, we have this correction again, and we are now a bit more in an impulsive phase. And so there is, if this is the correction is positioned fairly high, it's just slightly above this area here to the left. So that would be enough volume to carry price quite a lot further. So if we see a momentum breakout and starting a continuation, a bullish continuation outside the structure, that would be something to entertain as well. And then changing the bias for a New Zealand dollar Swiss francs long continuation, as we said before, with overall Swiss francs weakening, that would also be in line. So that's it. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye bye.